All right, Zach Taylor, third year as a head coach, first place in the AFC North. Third year Zach to first year Zach. If you coached against you in week 1 or 2, because this has always been a process. I mean, first of all, culturally, the game changes. Like if you coached against you, what is something you can really put your stamp on it, Zach, and go, boy, this is something I've gotten better at?
Situational awareness, just managing a game in all three phases. Things as simple as when to not burn a timeout, which I probably did a couple times my first year. I remember the first game at Seattle, my first ever game at Seattle, in the red zone on a 3rd and goal from the 15, we burnt a timeout. Your percentages of scoring a touchdown there are very low. So just things like those I've paid a lot of attention to mistakes I made the first year during games. I write them all down. I make sure I look at them constantly to not make the same mistake twice. Those are the things we ask our players to do. So it's no different for me trying to learn from things that I got to grow from as well.
I talked to Lane Kiffin once about this when he first got, a Raiders job or a USC job. And there was a sense that, man, these are great jobs. You don't get a lot of second and third chances. And it was hard to relinquish some play calling power because you're like, you have one of the 32 best jobs in the world, in my opinion. When you're a young coach, how do you have the confidence to go, hey, I trust my play caller and not be, Lane had told me a couple of times, it's hard. You want not to meddle, but you realize your career's at stake on every game.
Yeah, I call the plays on offense. And so part of that process is relying on Brian Callahan over the course of the week, because there's a lot of things that do pull me away from the process, whether it's personnel issues or discipline issues and things where I can't just always devote all my time to getting the game plan ready. So I rely on Brian Callahan and Frank Pollock and the other offense coaches. They do a tremendous job. Sometimes they have to catch me up to speed, on a Tuesday like this. And here's some thoughts that they had, and I got to get on board with it. And we just get together over the course of the week, and it's been seamless. We kind of share a brain in a lot of regards. We think the same way, and it's just been a fun evolution of our process over 3 years.
When was the first time you saw Joe Burrow, and what was your initial impression?
Probably the first time I heard the name was he was considering going to Cincinnati, the University of Cincinnati, before he went to LSU. That's probably the first time the name popped up. I've known his dad for a long time. I knew Dan and Jamie Burrow, his two brothers that played in Nebraska. I didn't know that there was a Joe Burrow that existed, until really he transferred to LSU, and then he became part of the draft process. And that was really the first time he ever came on my radar. But I've known his family because they're all Nebraska alums, and they went to Nebraska, and his brothers graduated right before me. So I've known the Burrow family for a long time.
Yeah, my daughter sat next to him in Baltimore this weekend. She went to the game and bizarre. Yeah. I actually sent it to Joe, and because I DM him once in a while to wish him well. And in the process of drafting him, when you're sitting down there with your general manager and the Brown family, what could you share with them about the family before meeting Joe that were really positive aspects? Because my daughter was kind of blown away just kind of by the good-natured, really sweet people. What did you share with the Brown family to say, you have to draft this guy?
Well, I didn't know Joe as well, obviously, so I had a hard time speaking to him, but just son of a coach, and so you do your research. Okay, what does that mean? Does that mean he's a football junkie? He grew up, he understands the game, and he's got that edge to him, that you need to have. And those are some of the qualities that he did have once we got to know him. So, it's a tremendous family. You can see why Joe is the way he is. And we're really lucky to have him.
Yeah, he has kind of a Brady, and comparing anybody to Brady is not great, but there is, Jay Glazer always said there's a little bit of an unhealthy obsession with successful people, whether it be if I'm a broadcaster, you're in tech, or you're a football player. That I was talking to Mark Sanchez today, and he goes, oh, God, Joe loves football. Joe loves football. He likes the process. He likes practice. In your years of coaching players, that's not true with everybody. Some guys don't love it as much, Zach. I mean, if I said to you, Joe loves it, what percentage of players in your coaching experience live for it like a Joe?
He's a little bit different that way. He's got the right edge to him. And a lot of people do just love what football brings to their life. They don't necessarily love everything. They're talented, and it's what's expected of them, and they're good at it, and they love the things it brings. Joe, from my time around him, he's obsessed with the process, every little detail. And, it's never perfect for him, which is great. That's what you want from your starting quarterback. And it just trickles down to the entirety of the team. Everyone's got so much confidence in him. They don't want to let him down because he's going to put himself to be in a position to be ready. And in his teammates, you can just get that sense they don't want to let him down. And that's the standard that we're looking for.
Can you get in his ear during a game? You'll hear these legendary stories. Hey, we drew it up in the sand, or we did a little wiggle. We'd never practiced. Are you comfortable now occasionally going to a space like that where in a game, situationally, you're like, Zach, try this, or he offers his opinion to you similarly to do a little wiggle, maybe that it's off script?
Absolutely. We just have to make sure it's sound. There's probably been times over the 2 years where we've gone to him and I just, hey, are you comfortable with this? If we did this, can you see it? Do you feel good about it? And that's one thing that I do admire about Joe. He's very honest, and he's not one of those guys just going to yes sir you to death because you think that's the answer you want. He'll be very honest. I don't understand. I don't want to do that. I don't like that. Please do this. And that's the communication I want. He's an extension of our coaching staff. It is different when you're talking to a quarterback at times. You want that clear and honest feedback, and Joe's not afraid to give it to you, and I appreciate that.
That to me is a fascinating relationship. I mean, I've seen it with other quarterback comes over, coach is like, you tell me what you see. Yeah. A lot of quarterbacks, due to the hash marks, college to pro, it takes them a while to see the entire field. Could you tell that Joe could see it from his film at LSU? Did it take him time at practice? Because take me and the people listening to this, I think a lot of people, they just don't realize that's not a natural, innate thing to be able to have somebody running at you and you can see 4 different receivers. Yeah. Give me the process for Joe on that, when he saw it, why he's so good at it, and when you first recognized it.
Well, I think for Joe, whether it's naturally or it came about in high school, he's just got such a high football IQ. It makes sense to him. Just seeing something for the first time makes sense on why it's happening. And so Joe, playing in college, the system they were in, Joe Brady came from the Saints. There was a lot of NFL concepts. So there was a lot of full field progressions. You needed to understand the coverage and then understand how the concept attacked it. And so you could see that on tape, how quickly it was going to translate to what we do, because there's a lot of crossover there with the West Coast offense. And so we had a good feeling just from watching his tape, watching his 16 games or whatever he played, and then interviewing him. You could tell, hey, this guy's got it. He'll quickly pick it up. Our first training camp, was the COVID training camp where he had no offseason. And he hit the ground running when we put the pads on. And you could just tell this guy's going to be special right from the get-go.
There's a fine line, and I see it with Burrow. There's a fun, I don't know if the word's cockiness, but it's really likable. Like, I like him. I think that means something. I'm not going to mention names, but there have been quarterbacks who are cocky, and I'm like, I don't know if I like them. I watched Brady and Peyton Manning and Eli last night on TV give each other crap. All of them I found incredibly likable. Yeah. I mean, like even in there, as Peyton was digging into Tom, I'm laughing. It's like a comedy act. There's something about Joe to me. I don't want to reach here, but there's a likability about him, and I don't know what that means or how it manifests itself on the field, but I see it in all of his interviews. What am I seeing?
You're seeing a guy that really doesn't care what other people think, and so he doesn't feel like he's got to put on an act to impress people just because he's in the spotlight. He's just Joe, and that's just his personality. He's confident because he puts in the work, and he doesn't run from that. Yeah, he's got the right edge to him, but I just think that the most important thing is he's not out there to impress people. He just wants to be one of the guys. He's a guy that works hard. He plays well on the field, and he's just himself. And that's a cool thing to be around.
You guys went and got a wide receiver, not an offensive lineman, and it was a mixed reaction. I mean, I love the draft, but there's no right answers. The greatest coaches have whiffed on first-round picks. It's hard. It's not science here at all. Take me back to the discussions, because it was obviously a great move, and Jamar's amazing. Joe was vocal about it, verbal about it. This guy's unbelievable. Was it a long decision? Was it something you went back and forth on? Take me to the process of that.
There was a lot of discussions. You only had to pick 5 players because we were picking 5th. So you didn't need to have a conversation about 30 guys. You knew it was going to be one of the 5, and it There's a couple quarterbacks that were going to come off the board. So we took our time. There was no need to make a decision before April hit. We were going to use all 3 months of it. But the most important thing is we needed to be more explosive. The relationship with him and Joe weighed into it a little bit. That wasn't the deciding factor. We need to be more explosive. Having a great explosive receiver helps your offensive line as well. So not only does it help your quarterback, not only does it help your offensive line, not only does it help your defense because you can score more points and take some of the pressure off of them. So at the end of the day, you look at a lot of championship offenses that have had stellar quarterbacks, and a lot of them had 3 really good receivers, and defenses couldn't hone in on them. And so that's our plan of attack, is put a lot of weapons out there. And, you look at Jamar Chase's 80-yard touchdown the other day was a slant route. That's a quick game. The linemen don't have to protect very long. And I don't have to call any extravagant play. I called a slant flat for 80 yards. It doesn't get much easier than that. So we're obviously very happy with the decision.
7 of the 8 divisions right now are led by the best quarterback in the division. 2 weeks ago, 14 of 14, the best quarterbacks would have won if Josh Allen didn't slip on a 4th and inches. Quarterback's always been important. There's no question about it, Zach. But it does feel like, Tom Brady told me yesterday, he said, sometimes the league feels like a skills game, a skills competition, because receiver and quarterback, the safety rules, now every receiver can go over the middle. It used to be everybody had, Michael Irvin, you go over the middle, the rest of the guys up the sideline. And I thought to myself, when you go into drafting now, because the receiver and quarterback are so valuable, if it's a coin flip on personnel, do you just now go more than ever for the skill player over the lineman? Or is that oversimplifying it?
For me, that's oversimplifying it. It's you're based on the value, you're basing it on the need. There's a combination of it as it comes down to the draft. So it's not always as simple as that. But again, when you pick the 5th pick, we knew we needed another weapon, and we had a sense that Jamar would be there, and so that settled it for us. But we certainly had long, lengthy conversations, and people gave the pros and the cons to it. We made sure we don't just settle in on a guy and this is going to be great. There's a lot of people who do a great job presenting the other side of the argument in the room, and we need all that to make a third decision.
Zach, when in the middle of last week's game, you guys had a great second half. And I think one of the things, as somebody that loves football, you get about 15 minutes, offense veers off to the right, the defense to the left.
Yep.
You obviously made some tweaks, and they were wildly successful. And I always think to myself, man, what did you go to the chalkboard? What is Zach doing? If you could now, in retrospect, without giving away secrets, you clicked something at halftime. What was it against the Ravens?
That's really been our MO the whole season. We've come out strong. I don't know what our numbers are coming out the second half, but we've scored on dang near every time we got in the ball in the third quarter, and in the first half as well. And so it's more just a matter of the first half getting into a rhythm. We've shot ourselves in the foot sometimes on some short yardage situations where we feel like when we just get that first down, we really get rolling and score points. And so I think a lot is made of these adjustments that happen at halftime. We're just going back through the call sheet. We have a better sense of what we're seeing from the other team. And we're just pulling plays that maybe we haven't called yet. Maybe some things we made mistakes on in the first half that we can get back to and just clean up. And so it's there's no extravagant 12-minute conversation that we're having in there. It happens pretty quick. And we're at the point now where we've got so much confidence in our guys on offense. These are things that we've repped a lot. We're not putting in a lot of new stuff. We got a lot of stuff in our arsenal, and our guys are responding really well to it.
Going back to Sean McVay, you're obviously a very sharp guy. But, when you're around somebody that is, he's really verbal, he's really quick, he's really good with people. If I said to you, give me something, you obviously had a point of view on how to coach football, but is there one thing you took from Sean that you look at and go, yeah? I always say, the old Tony Bennett's a legendary singer. He always says, steal from everybody, it's called research. If you steal from one guy, you're a thief. Yeah. So take stuff from everybody. Give me a little bit of your influences. Let's start with McVay. And Nick Saban always credits Don James from Washington, the legendary old defensive football coach. He says, his practice schedule, I took it. Give me some Sean stuff and other influences in your life.
Absolutely. That's a tremendous question. I would say for Sean, he always has a great understanding of what's going on around the league. A lot of times before I'd gotten with Sean, it was very singularly focused on the opponent that week. Sean's got a broad vision of what's going on around the league and how people are attacking. He's always attacking. That's his mentality, is I'm always trying to attack and get explosive plays. And then the third thing I would say is how he empowers and the people in the building and makes you feel valued. Whatever role you're in, you feel like you are a part of the success. And he does a great job making you feel like you're a part of it, even when maybe you're not, And so that just speaks to Sean as the person and how he gets so much out of his staff. And you've seen so many people leave onto, bigger roles. And it's because he just instills a lot of confidence in people, and you believe in exactly what they're doing there in LA. And so it's easy to go and take it somewhere else and have success. Other influences in my life, I coached for my father-in-law is Mike Sherman. And I think the number one thing I learned from him was just always be honest with your players, and sometimes it feels like it's harsh, but they respect that honesty. They may not in that moment, but they will weeks later or years later or months later, whatever it is. But he was always very honest, and I know that the players appreciated that. And so I've tried to take that from him. And then, my junior college coach who has since passed away, his name was Aaron Flores. He was my offense coordinator. I transferred from Wake Forest. I was a skinny kid. I had no talent. I was weak. I didn't have a lot of confidence. I wasn't playing at Wake Forest. I go to this junior college, and he made me believe in myself. And I remember I threw an interception in a championship game, and he took the responsibility. I shouldn't have called that play. That was a stupid play call. It's not your fault. And that's the first time I'd ever heard that. It's not my fault. I'm the quarterback. I threw the ball. and that has stuck with me every day I've coached. There's sometimes a quarterback will throw a pick and it's not his fault. I might have put him in a bad spot. I'll tell him when it's his fault. But there's other times there's things that happen where we just got to put that behind us and move on. And those guys don't have to feel the pressure of, oh man, I made a huge mistake. No, you didn't. It was a stupid call, or the corner made a great play, and let's move on and learn from that. So, I've had a lot of great mentors in my life, and those are just a couple that I can name.
Tell me the last time you made a call with Burrow, and as you said it and you gave it to Joe, you thought, jeez. Do you doubt yourself? I mean, God, Zach, you got 8 seconds here. You've had to have given a call and thought, what the hell am I doing? I don't like this.
Yeah. I won't get specific into the last game, but there was one in the last game for sure. That I was pretty mad at myself. There was one last year. We scored a touchdown on it. I called a quarterback sneak on a 3rd and 1. And he got under center and just started shaking his head. He didn't like the look. So then I'm stuck, so he's kind of just standing there, and I give him a different call, and it ends up being a 30-yard touchdown run. But that was a moment like, okay, I can read your body language out there on the field. You don't like this, so let's get to something else as quickly as we can.
You talked about play calling. Zach, because when you say body language, I saw Dan Campbell this weekend do something I really liked. Something happened. There was a special teams play that worked, and he literally went to each, as a coach, because he's not play calling, he went to each player individually. And it was like, I love that. And he looked all of them in the eye. That balance of play calling and head coaching, it's real personal on that sideline. I mean, you know that. You have a bad drive. These are 24-year-old guys. They lose confidence. Give me the balance of all that on a sideline on game day.
Yeah, you're making sure, 'cause as a play caller, that there's particular players you want to seek out, certain situations. Maybe they're not getting the ball enough. You want to make sure that they're engaged, because there's a lot of guys I rely on their energy over the course of the game. And sometimes when you don't feel that energy, I'll go address it with them. Hey, we're going to get you involved, but I need you to fake it till you make it a little bit, because it does affect me, over here on the sidelines. And I think our staff does a really good job, where I can just say things on the headset. Sometimes they can address it, but there are other teams you need to do it one-on-one. And I think Dan Campbell, I coached for him for a couple of years, and he's as good as it gets in terms of relating to the players and motivating those guys and getting them to run through a wall for him. So there's no doubt that he'll get those guys going.
When you're in your first couple of years, you don't have Joe Burrow yet. Then there's last year you do. He gets hurt. You're losing football games. Zach, how do you maintain the old great baseball manager Billy Martin used to say, there's 25 guys, 10 hate me, 10 love me. I've got to keep 5 away from the ones that hate me. This is a world where you got old players, young players, special teams players. Not everybody's going to love you. When you're losing games, you can lose guys in the locker room. How do you maintain it? Because you clearly did. It's never been an effort thing with the Bengals. When you guys have lost, it's been injuries. It's been, personnel situations. How do you maintain it when you're on a 3-game losing streak?
Yeah, it was always about building the foundation and trying to win games while we did it. But being honest about our process. Hey, here's why we're doing the things we're doing. We believe in it. We're not afraid to adapt and adjust, which we have done plenty over the last 3 years. And we're going to be honest and consistent with our players. So just because we're losing doesn't mean I'm going to change my attitude every day and become this different person that I wasn't during training camp of that first year. And now we're losing, so I'm going to be a jerk to everybody and blame everybody but myself. So that wasn't how we were going to go about it, and we could sense that first year was going to be a difficult year. But we just had such positivity in the locker room, and you could identify the players that were going to be with us through the end, and you empower those guys, and they pull a lot of guys with them. And then the next year you add players in the draft and free agency that are captains. They've won championships, whether on their college team or competed for playoff titles with the Saints and some other teams, the guys we added. And you start to get more and more of those guys. And then everyone's just pulling in the same direction. And we got 53 guys in the locker room right now. I love every single one of them. I look forward to walking in the locker room, and there's not one guy you don't want to make eye contact with, because you don't want to have a conversation with them, which sometimes happens in locker rooms. But we just got everybody on board. Everyone's believing, and it is a blast to be a part of.
What I find fascinating about football is sometimes Lou Holtz used to say, you get a different team every week. The quarterback broke up with his girlfriend. The defensive back flunked a test. Now, you don't have that, but you were so zoned in against Baltimore. It was so obvious. You obviously go in optimistic or confident, but is that game, did you sense you were going to get that performance? That was as big a Bengal win. We were saying this on my show. I can't remember a Bengal win where I walked away and went, okay, I think different about the organization. Did you have that good a week of practice? Did you sense that would happen?
We really did. And there's been plenty of weeks where we didn't have a great Wednesday practice, a great Thursday practice, and it happens, and you address it, and you make sure they know we got to come back tomorrow. Last week was an outstanding week. Guys were locked in. Players were meeting extra because Baltimore, they stress you in all 3 phases. They got a great staff. They got great players. They've been competing at a high level for a long time, and our guys knew that. And so we just got a really smart football team. At the end of the day, you wake up on a Sunday morning and you got a tough game ahead of you, and you're a little bit stressed there for a moment. But I just sit there and think, hey, we got talent. Our guys are smart. They're going to go out there and do their jobs as long as we put them in good position to do it. And that's the point that we're at right now with this Bengals team.
Would you rather face – now, Harbaugh's a special teams coach. Give me the challenges of facing on game day another offensive coach, Kevin Stefanski, or a defensive coach, Tomlin. Do you, Zach, coach a little differently based on who's on the sideline in your personal chess match?
Not necessarily. No, it's more just on the tendencies of what type of aggression they have, situationally, fourth down, those types of things. And it's not always a factor of whether they're an offensive, defense, or special teams. You just try to get a sense over their career, what their philosophy is. So it's more of that. It's less about Mike Tomlin and Kevin Stefanski and Harbaugh. And it's just more about their overall philosophy as a team.
How do you make sure that you don't have tendencies? Do you have somebody scout Zach Taylor? Do you have somebody scout the Bengals?
Absolutely. We've got people within the building, analytics people that do a great job giving us the information. We self-scout our own side of the ball too, as well with some of our coaches. And sometimes it's good to have some tendencies. Sometimes I like to see that we're this percentage of something because we know we've got some things in our back pocket that are going to counterbalance that. And so it's not always a terrible thing to have some tendencies when you know that you got a great opportunity to break them and get some explosive plays off with it. So, that's a big part of what we do during the week.
Are you a Bill Walsh, I script 12 plays, which I always think is smart because it reduces maybe chaos, but also if you see something that you didn't expect to see and you're running a play, like where do you fall as an offensive coach on scripting plays?
Yeah, we've certainly got some early calls, and the purpose is twofold. It's to give your players, especially the night before the game, a sense of what direction we're going to start the game on, so they can mentally go to sleep and wake up the next morning and have an understanding of, hey, here's probably the first 8 or 10 normal down calls we're going to get to. And then secondly, it's getting a chance to see how the other team's coming out and attacking you right away. So you try to do some different things with personnel and formations and try to get a sense for that to continue to adjust as the game unfolds. And so there's a couple different ways to approach it, but I like to make sure that our players have an understanding of how we're going to start the game.
Many of your best players, Zach, are young. Not collegiate young, but there are older locker rooms and younger locker rooms. We have an extra game this year. How do you avoid, I mean, you're in first place, you'd be a number 1 seed. Do you think about, okay, we just had the biggest win in a long time. Okay, how do you coach them off, that emotional peak? Is that something you think about? Like, man, let's not get too high here because this league punishes the overconfident.
They do, and I think we had a good win on the road against Pittsburgh earlier in the season. It was a similar situation, and our guys responded well the next week. And so we just have enough. You're right. We have a lot of young players, but they don't act young. They're mature. They understand. We got enough veteran leadership with the Riley Reefs, the Von Bells, all those guys that have been there and done it at a high level, that are helping bring these younger guys along. And the standard's too high right now, and our guys understand that. And so I feel very confident in the type of leadership we have on the team to not fall into some of those pitfalls that could be in front of us.
Bengals number 1 seed. I mean, listen, you obviously have confidence, but I mean, if you look at that on paper, do you think, wow, this is working a little faster than I thought?
No, all I look at is we put ourselves through 7 games in a good position to be able to achieve the things that we talked about in the preseason. But all that really matters is beating the Jets, and so again, it's anything can happen each week. I see a Jets team that's really hungry and they're going to present some problems to us. And so our focus right now is just being on 6-2, and that's all that really matters.
Finally, that Green Bay game is, there's an old saying in coaching, don't let a loss beat you twice. Yep. I thought you had the game won twice. I mean, Green Bay probably thought the same. Yep. But how long do you kick yourself? How poorly do you sleep when you go home that night and you're like, oh, crap, we had Aaron Rodgers. I mean, not that it was a circle game. They're all circle games. But God, Zach, you played well. The Packers were uncomfortable a lot in that game. Was that a night you go home and your wife's trying to connect and you got a million things going off in your head?
Yeah, you're right. That was a tough one. But, having coached for a long time in this league, you're going to have a lot of tough ones. And the important thing is that we just learned from some of the things that we could have done better. And for me, some situations that could be better, some plays our guys could have done a better job putting themselves in position on. And you have to do your best to put that one behind you as quickly as possible. And just learn from the things that you can learn from and try to use those to help you win some games in the future.
Yeah. That was one of those games. It was one of the rare instances where I watched the team lose and I thought, oh, yeah, they're good. They're buttoned up. I mean, that was my takeaway as a fan, a consumer. I was like, oh, yeah, you outplayed Green Bay. I mean, you felt like you outplayed them probably.
We felt like we put ourselves in position to win, and so we didn't. And that's at the end of the day, that's all that matters.
Yeah. Well, I appreciate you doing this, Coach.
Thanks a lot, Colin. Appreciate you having me.